Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Killer Content Showcase Series webinar called How to Turn Research Data into a Content Arsenal. I'm Alicia Esposito, Content Strategist for Demand Gen Report, and I'll be moderating today's presentation. Today, you'll learn how magnetics transform data from a single survey into a multi-touch, multi-channel marketing program. To keep the conversation going, we encourage you to share your thoughts and perspectives on today's webinar using the Best in B2B hashtag. If you have a direct question or feedback for any of our speakers, you can also tag us using our Twitter handles, which are displayed on this slide. And for those of you who may be new to Demand Gen Report, here's a quick overview. We're an online media company publishing daily news, a weekly email newsletter, special reports, original research, and a rich menu of additional resources. In addition, we produce the annual Content to Conversion Conference and Demand Gen Summit. If you haven't done so already, see what our 40,000 subscribers are buzzing about and submit to our weekly newsletter by subscribing to demandgenreport.com. Today's webinar is part of a special series we're running to showcase our Killer Content Award winners. The KCAs, or also called the Finnies, are part of the Content to Conversion Conference, and were designed to spotlight the true leaders and disruptors in content marketing. Every year, we try to recognize an assortment of B2B brands across different industries that have taken truly unique approaches to nurture campaign design, content execution, and so much more. Here's a quick overview of some of the categories we try to spotlight every year. And for today's webinar, we're using the On24 platform. Right now, you should be viewing the On24 dashboard, which shows a live viewing screen. Using the widget on the right-hand side of the screen and by clicking questions, you can submit one or a few questions for our presenters as they come to mind. Our team and Magnetics team will also be available to field additional questions that you may have. Right below the Questions tab, you will also see a few resources that you can download at your leisure, including the research report, which we're going to be discussing today. Finally, you can track all of the Twitter chatter being generated through our event hashtag on the left side of the screen. And just a quick note to attendees that today's presentation is slated for about half an hour with time for live questions following the presentation. But again, we encourage you to ask those questions as they come to mind so we can have a consistent and lively discussion during the Q&A segment. Now, here's a little bit more information about our speakers, and then we'll get started. Our first speaker today is Jamie Fischler, who is VP of Marketing at Magnetic. Jamie is responsible for advancing Magnetic's position in the market and for leading the company's marketing strategy. She has more than 10 years of experience marketing high-growth technology companies. Prior to joining Magnetic in 2011, Jamie spearheaded corporate communications at global ad technology firms, including Turn and iBlaster. Before joining tech firms in-house, Jamie worked in public relations and marketing at an integrated San Francisco-based agency where she led communication strategies for a wide range of clients, spanning digital media, green technology, education, healthcare, and finance. Our second speaker is Kathy Mammon, who is Senior Director of Demand Generation at Magnetic. Kathy is responsible for all demand generation programs and campaigns to drive pipeline for the sales team. Kathy's career has grown in the B2B marketing tech space with a focus on demand gen marketing for more than 8 years. A 3-time Killer Content Award winner, Kathy loves creating and writing content, but always craves the analytical side of marketing with her pulse on marketing metrics that convert into pipeline. Now, this is a project that's very near and dear to me as a content strategist and who also works for our sister brand Retail Touchpoints. So we were able to work with Magnetic on this survey report, which is really focused on keeping a pulse on how retailers were executing personalization through their marketing campaigns and through their engagement with shoppers. But of course, to add some more depth to the conversation, we also surveyed some shoppers as well. So the resulting piece was a really in-depth survey that outlined retailers' current capabilities with shoppers' expectations. And although the survey itself was really powerful, the true magic happened with how Magnetic used this survey as a jumping-off point for a really comprehensive campaign that spanned across different channels and different marketing tactics. So I'm really excited to have the folks at Magnetic here today to really share their side of the story and how they really took this data and turned it into something far bigger and far more powerful for their organization in the long run. So without any further introduction, I'm going to turn the conversation over to Jamie, and she's going to share some more insight.
Thanks for the warm introduction, Alicia. Before we go into the depth of the content, I want to start by talking a little bit about Magnetic. So what we do, we're essentially a marketing platform with a very unique view of people. What we see is what people are searching for across the web, and we also have deep customer shopper profiles. So this combination gives us a really rich set of data with first and third-party information that allows us to really understand what people are in market to buy, their preferences, brand affinities, whether they're a price-sensitive shopper or a luxury buyer. And then through our marketing technology, we're able to deliver meaningful messages across channels, such as ads, email, and site. Now, back in May of 2015, we faced a big yet exciting challenge. Magnetic had just merged with a company called MyBuys, and we needed to bring these companies together. We had a very aggressive timeline in terms of combining these organizations publicly. It was about 3 months or so. Now, I just mentioned what we do today, which is a result of the merger, but it's important to understand the company's pre-merger because that was a big driving force behind this ebook. We were two very different companies with very different value propositions. MyBuys was hyper-focused on personalization across channels, primarily playing in the email and site personalization space with some lighter media capabilities. MyBuys was also very focused on selling directly to brands. On the other hand, Magnetic was focused on a niche part of the market called search retargeting. This solution was really focused on using intent data for media campaigns aimed at prospecting. And unlike MyBuys, Magnetic was built on a very agency-focused business. We wanted to go to market in September as one company, and so we worked really quickly on how we could reposition the two companies from branding to messaging. But another big task at hand was introducing Magnetic to the retail market. We had worked with the retailers, but mainly through agencies. MyBuys, on the other hand, was very well known in the retail market, working directly with the brands. Our new go-to-market message was focused on understanding people through this unique set of data and delivering value to them across channels. Our solutions were much stronger together than apart, and we needed to really drive home the message that people want to be understood. That's why we created the ebook. We wanted the messaging to support our new positioning and create a space for Magnetic to improve what consumers experience today.
As Jamie mentioned, for Magnetic, whose company background and culture is rooted in advertising technology, the merger with MyBuys presented a huge opportunity to gain traction in the retail and marketing tech space, in which MyBuys had firmly planted its roots. Therefore, our main goal for developing the ebook, Closing the Gap Between People's Expectations and Retail Realities, was to drive awareness and position Magnetic as a thought leader and expert in the retail space by focusing on the wants and needs of consumers. We then wanted to provide guidance and steps on how retailers can alleviate customer frustration through online and offline strategies. We really felt that developing first-party research would be a great way to get a real-time pulse on the marketplace and to establish our brand as an industry expert. So Alicia did intro me and say that I lead demand generation efforts here at Magnetic, though, right? So of course, like any red-blooded demand gen marketer, I need to generate leads from this report. I think one of the coolest parts of my job is having the ability to put blood, sweat, and tears into a piece of content and to see that people actually respond and want to learn more. They really do like what we do and find it valuable. And this content piece was to serve as kind of like a euphoric catalyst for real people to engage with Magnetic, probably even for the first time since our two companies merged together. And I couldn't wait to get started. I'm going to give a small nod to my dad on our last goal for this content piece, to produce insights, and I'm going to share a small personal story. At the time, I was 17 and going for my first big corporate interview at the pharmaceutical company Merck. At the time, I had only had one job prior to this interview, and that was working as a CVS one-hour photo technician. So as you can probably assume, I wasn't quite equipped with a ton of invaluable skills when I walked into the wall-to-ceiling glass dome of a 1 million square foot complex in White House Station, New Jersey. I was so nervous and so self-doubting before heading to the interview that I almost backed out. The one piece of advice that my dad gave to me was this: be articulate. No matter what your experience, the one thing everyone is looking for out of an interview is to figure out if you can articulate your value, whether big or small, and to speak with conviction on how you can provide that same value in any other experience. Well, I believe the same holds true with creating content. The true value that comes from creating content is being able to articulate insights and then how to relate those insights into how you can provide similar value to another person. So this became our third and overarching goal. We wanted to produce insights that could be used over and over again and could be frequently cited to give us maximum exposure.
I want to spend a couple minutes talking about the strategy and the two surveys that we created. So we wanted to measure consumer sentiment towards retailers so we could understand their marketing experiences and expectations. And we also wanted to create something for retailers so that we could understand their current marketing tactics across channels such as email, advertising, and on-site personalization. The goal was to compare two surveys so that we were able to measure people's expectations and experiences against what retailers think they're doing today. Personalization is not new, and either is data-driven marketing, yet the results showed a clear gap between the consumers and brands. Magnetic's platform can help close that gap, and so the questions were carefully structured in a way that we could look at the perspectives of these two different audiences. For example, we asked retailers how frequently they deliver relevant emails, and then we asked consumers if they expect relevancy in their emails. Only about half of the retailers said that they do frequently deliver relevant emails, and over 75% of consumers expect emails to be relevant. Another strong example was that 61% of the retailers said they deliver messages tailored to profiles, yet a good number of shoppers responded that they weren't really seeing relevant marketing messages. These types of responses allowed us to show the gap between people and what retailers are doing. The creation of these surveys was definitely the most challenging part of the ebook. And questions created for consumers really had to match up with the questions created for retailers so that we could draw those parallel conclusions. As we fleshed out the questions, we would write out the commentary we were looking for and the results that we wanted. And then we worked backwards to craft the right question for both parties. There were many drafts, and at times it felt like we were constantly fine-tuning that messaging. But we knew this was the most critical part of the process. And if we wanted to build a strong piece of content, we needed to nail this. It then took about 6 to 8 weeks to get the number of responses we wanted for each survey. And then came the analysis. But since we had spent so much time up front really aligning the questions and carefully selecting how we wanted to ask them to both parties, the analysis and insights was actually easier than we had expected. And the results gave us a great platform for building this story.
So what was our plan? We knew we wanted to build many content pieces to make this piece bigger than a standalone ebook. One of the great benefits of creating an in-depth content piece is the ability to break it down into smaller content pieces to really share and amplify throughout the execution and distribution of the message. So from this one ebook, we were able to produce 10 different content assets that spoke to the takeaways in the ebook. And I think that what we found even more amazing was that none of the content pieces sounded or looked alike. So here's a look at what we developed. Using the insights we gained from the surveys and report, we pitched our angle to the media, which gained attention from eMarketer, who repackaged and shared our results for a feature story and a lead story in their daily email to subscribers. Marketing Land also picked up our piece with coverage that tied to holiday sales. We wrote and published a press release of our findings, and my absolute personal favorite, Infographic Weekly, took our data and in one day turned our insights into an infographic called What Kind of Retail Marketing Do Your Customers Fall For?, which gave our data a whole new spin that came packaged in this beautiful fall foliage image that they created for us. Seriously, we didn't pay a cent for this. Who doesn't love marketing that markets itself? And we also used our social channels to support the campaign and paid social as well. And of course, we remarketed the content piece through retargeting ads. So we used our ebook to drive digital assets and awareness to the top of the funnel, which I just talked about. And we also focused on email campaigns and smaller content pieces that were really for the middle of the funnel. We used the content piece as a touch point in our ongoing nurture programs, calling out a key stat from the report as what I would call bait. As a result of winning a Killer Content Award, we rebranded our email to include the Finney logo on the email, which drove many more clicks and downloads of the report. We also created an infographic to visually represent the insights in the report. We wanted to test the waters with a different type of content medium, so we took the report and created an interactive quiz through a tool called BrainShark to drive engagements and downloads of the report. And admittedly, this one definitely didn't go so well, but I guess you don't know until you try. Many of you on this webinar are probably familiar with Jason Miller, who he's a well-known and well-respected content marketing thought leader, and he really talks about how we should all be creating content with the idea of pulling as much value as we can from what he calls bite-sized slices or teasers to drive back to the original content piece. And we all think yeah, that makes sense. Let me go create my infographic, my webinar, my video, my social posts. But oftentimes, I think what marketers forget is the awesome sales content that can be created as a result. Email prospecting templates, stats for sales presentations, case study support. These should all be considered as additional content pieces for amplification of marketing content. I think one of the most surprising outcomes from creating this content piece was how much our sales team really supported our efforts and how proud they were to share and send out this report. And like me, I'm pretty sure all of you have been in a situation where we work with a sales team that really sees marketing content as fluff, and they really hesitate to share out thought leadership pieces that have been produced internally. But what was great was that because of the rich nature of this retail report, our sales teams were really proud to send it out or hand it out at trade shows because of all of the first-party research that was supporting our message and our value prop in the industry. We even used the stats from the report to create slideshow presentations that ran behind us at our booth to help drive foot traffic. And what was great is that it also provided a talking point as soon as someone came into the booth and we could engage them. And last but not least, of course, having a huge Killer Content Award winner sticker stamped on the front cover definitely doesn't hurt. Always encourage your sales team to become more familiar with marketing-produced content. I think a really helpful hint is putting together a sales cheat sheet, for lack of a better word, that includes key stats and takeaways that can be grouped by by topics. And this way they can easily scan the document for key supporting stats and ideas that they can use in whatever they're trying to produce. So let's talk results. We have had 493 downloads to date, which makes this content piece the #1 downloaded content piece for Magnetic to date. Our homepage slider drove 342 visits to the landing page that houses the content. We used the content piece for retargeting ads, and this piece was definitely our runaway hit. We saw double the click-through rate compared to our other ads while this one ran. 83% of the people who downloaded the report were net new to Magnetic, and 7% of the people who download the report eventually converted to a marketing qualified lead. And maybe one of my proudest stats as a demand gen marketer is that 8 months after the launch of our ebook, our landing page is still one of the top 5 web pages generating traffic for Magnetic's website.
So we learned a lot from this experience, and going into this probably underestimated the power of a single, well-crafted piece of research. We're still leveraging it nearly a year later and looking at ways to find more value from that original investment. For me, it was most exciting to create a strong piece of content that could support our new positioning, and the fact that it could be constantly reused and repurposed gave us additional opportunities to really drive home that new messaging. We're still using it in many ways today. There's 2 reasons why I think this worked so well. The first one is organizational support, which speaks to what Kathy covered earlier when she talked about sales participation. We had support from various departments across the organization. Sales teams were excited about using the piece of content and even asked to send it to clients. We had hard copies produced and shared across the offices. And we also had the support of the entire marketing team. So from PR, demand gen, digital, and sales marketing, we really collaborated on how we could amplify this message across all these channels. We didn't want this to be sort of like this one-and-done approach. The second thing, and the reason that I think this worked so well, is that the approach was unique and clearly articulated the sentiment behind consumers and what retailers think they're doing. It's really hard for B2B companies to stand out because there's so much content available. So finding that right message for your audience and delivering the information in a way that's interesting to them was really key. If you look at this ebook, it doesn't have a ton of content. It really highlights the findings and that gap that we were trying to expose between consumer realities and retail realities and consumer expectations. So while this was a great piece of content with really strong results, there's also always lessons to be learned. So there's 3 things I want to share that I think we've learned as part of this. One, the content can sometimes be the easy part. So as I said earlier, creating the right questions was definitely the most challenging part of this process. Focusing on the questions so that you can get the response you need is really, really important. Don't throw away your drafts. I mentioned earlier how much we had to go back and iterate on the previous drafts and content that we're creating. So the process is really just as important as that end result. 3 is don't be so quick to retire the content. So we shared a lot about all the different ways we've been using it, and there's probably a lot more we could be doing, and we'll continue to look for ways to drive results. Simple things that we do now are really incorporating some of the key insights into our blog posts or other types of messaging, but there's probably a lot more ways that we can really leverage the content to continue to amplify the message. We hope that our experience and strategies spark some new ideas and considerations for your next piece of content. And at this time, I think we'll open up the discussion for some questions.
Thanks so much, Jamie and Kathy, for a overview and for sharing such great insights, in terms of the creative process, how we continue to reiterate and build upon drafts and questions, but of course diving deep into the actual execution and the promotion of the content. I think it really shows, the mileage and the potential for surveys especially. we already have a lot of really great questions from the audience, but I think to kick things off, I want to ask you, Jamie, there are so many different types of content formats out there, so many different ways you could have unveiled, Magnetic and MyBuys, after that, that big merger. So what made you decide to go with a survey of all the different formats and possibilities out there?
Sure. So, for us, I think we took kind of a more standard approach at first, just announcing the merger. But we wanted, and that happened in May of 2015, that announcement. We wanted something that could live much longer than that initial announcement that just kept reiterating the new messaging. And so when we looked at the different research that was out there, there was already a lot covered in terms of different snippets and insights about personalization, so doing something just straightforward on personalization wasn't really going to do the trick. There was also a lot already covered on what consumers wanted in terms of coordinated experiences across channels. There's been kind of a lot around devices and the coordination. But what we didn't see is a strong piece that aligned the two perspectives so that you really could match up retailers' marketing activities with consumers' expectations or experiences. And we knew there was a gap, and we knew that our marketing platform, one of the value props is that it can help really close that gap and give consumers what they want. So we wanted to be able to support that company messaging. And so doing two surveys really seemed like a very unique path that could live beyond when we released the ebook, which is October, and continue to support our messaging, throughout this year and hopefully even further.
Yeah, that's great. And I really love how you had those core messaging points and takeaways that you guys really wanted to spotlight as a brand. But, there are so many different ways to slice and dice that data to unveil something new or put a new spin on the topic. And one of the things that you guys touched on during the presentation that really stuck out to me is that, there's so much content out there, and I feel like that's especially true for research, right? I mean, especially in retail, because, retailers are always trying to find out the next big thing or what consumers want or, how to be more effective in their marketing and, promotional tactics and experiences. So I think to be successful, you really need to have a really powerful arsenal of promotional tactics and different channels and approaches. So that kind of is a good transition into one of the questions that I wanted to call out from our audience. Someone asked, how you guys established your promotional tactics. How did you really figure out how to coordinate all those different efforts? How did you narrow it down? Kathy, you seem to be the most effective person to answer that question.
Yeah, and it's kind of an easy one for me to answer because the way that our marketing team is structured really just helps us in every content piece that we promote. We're doing the same thing every time, because just as the way that our team is set up. So within our team, we have 3 functional groups that we've touched upon briefly in the webinar, but we have a Marcom team that's really responsible for branding awareness and PR. We have the demand gen team that's responsible for everything digital and leads, and then we have the sales enablement team, which is really focused on our sales produced content. And so as a marketing team, we use a marketing framework document, or some other marketing teams may use a playbook or something similar. And what it does is that it aligns all of the core campaigns that we're running to every marketing function within the team. So because of that alignment, we also align every campaign to our organizational and company-wide goals. And so right from the start, it really just sets up the marketing team to be successful and to amplify content in everything that we do that also aligns to company goals, right? So for this content piece, we really all understood our roles. We understood that, the person responsible for digital on our team would really lead all of the social aspects and, everything that had to do with our website and having that kind of amplification there. Our Marcom team knew that they were responsible for everything related to PR and our media pushes. The sales enablement team knew that they needed to help create email templates and do the incorporation of stats into templates. And then the demand gen team really knew that we had to work to put together our emails and our outbound pushes and really work with third-party vendors like Demand Gen Report so that we could target audiences similar than ours that we don't already have. So I just think having this kind of structure already built into the team really just makes our content promotion tactics just successful.
Yeah, it's definitely clear that, since everyone has their own individual goals and tasks and how they're aligned to the big picture goals, for Magnetic, the fact that it's so strategic and coordinated, that really seemed to be the cause, or what led to the overall program being so successful, which is fantastic, and it really reaffirms the importance of having a set strategy in place that can scale or be refined based on a specific campaign or specific goals. But I can't help but wonder, were there any specific channels or promotional tactics that were most effective out of this diverse mix that you leveraged?
Okay, so I'm not going to cop out here and say probably what most people would say, or really what's the most correct answer, which is really that all of the channels working in tandem is really what gave us so much success. Right. But I do think that the most surprising to me, the most surprising effective channel was really our media coverage. And I say that not because of the number of leads that this channel drove, but really because of the effect of this channel. So having a marketer pick up our story right from the beginning really gave the marketing team a boost internally. It's a very well-respected publication. Our sales team ears perked up when they heard that we got coverage here. So really having that kind of clout behind us gave us that mojo to really go full force behind this piece. And then, of course, having the sales team behind it really helped us amplify the message. And then I think another thing, in terms of media that I can think about and that just made it an effective channel is that I've never before in my career seen another publication create an infographic for you, which is really what happened for us. So I just think that having those two unexpected pieces just really helped energize the team and what we were trying to accomplish. It helped to realign us. It really helped to remind us how strong of a content piece it was. So that's why I'm just going to say that I think that our media efforts were our most effective channel.
And I can add that with the marketer, we've seen, so there was the initial piece, there was the email that it was included in, but then they've written other types of content around personalization, and our research has been cited in it, or people have cited it because they use eMarketer as a resource, and so they can find kind of our stats within their portal, and then they can cite it in their own content. And so you kind of get this, halo effect from having someone like eMarketer cover it from the get-go.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I think, of course it depends on, the industry and, the role you're trying to target with your content. But I think for the most part, executives turn to third-party media outlets and, analyst groups to, learn about these new trends and, uncover new insights for their job roles, their day-to-day tasks, and what they may be looking to, invest in, from a strategy standpoint. So I think it really shows the value of, the organic, media pickups, that happen when they're just, searching through the web and they see an interesting research report and that kind of leads to a conversation. But also the power of just identifying these really influential publications and, thinking about new ways to present angles or, a story around the content. And I think in and of itself, this piece had an advantage because you're already working with a great angle that a lot of these publications could pick up and work with. So I think you guys brought up a lot of really great points there. And I think to close off our conversation today, since we're just about out of time now, you touched a little bit on this, but I'm wondering if there are any upcoming plans or initiatives that you guys have in place to continue to promote the content today because it has such repurposing potential and because it's such a hard-hitting topic that is still very much on the top of retailers' minds.
I'll take this one. So as Jamie mentioned during the webinar, we definitely think there's still a lot more we could be doing. There are ways that we've tried to keep it alive. So we did rewrite the email promoting the content piece to include in our ongoing nurture program, but we added in our Finney logo, which has gotten a lot more attention since we've won the award. We've partnered with a lot of third-party companies like Demand Gen Report that really will share out this content piece to their audiences that are similar than ours. We continue to promote this piece through social, sharing out tweets, and we definitely still use the stats in sales presentations. I don't think that has died yet. And then one idea that I'll just share out that we have done that I just think is just really effective for keeping content alive is, develop a hashtag for your content piece right from the start. So you can really track any engagement from the moment that you actually, push it live and you're done, published, to when you're actually, throughout the year when you're going to be talking about it.
And I think, if you can build content that can support your brand message, you really can continue to reuse and repurpose it. So, we made sure that the survey covered our core channels that we offer to our clients, such as email ads and site. And so anytime we're trying to promote those channels, depending on what the forum, whether it's more of a thought leadership piece or not, we can always kind of reuse some of the stats to support some of the positioning. And so the key takeaway is really give us a ton of mileage to continue to use this.
Oh, this is great. And I want to say thanks again, Jamie and Kathy, for taking the time out and, of course, diving really deep into the thought process, the planning, and then the execution of this overall campaign that, of course, is still very much, in action today. And I think it's really exciting and reaffirms the value of surveys, even though it's a lot of time and a lot of upfront work and, coordination, like you said, to ensure you're asking the right questions to get the data outputs you need to support your story and your messaging. It's a very nuanced and interesting process, and I think it really, makes you stretch your creative limits in a lot of ways. So thank you for being so honest and transparent, with your feedback and your experiences, and of course showing those results because, again, I think it really shows the power and the potential for research data. With that, I would want to call out that, we do have the Demand Gen Report blog where we're going to be showing and have been showing different KCA showcase columns or Q&As, and Kathy actually participated in one as well where she dove even deeper into the process and the campaign, the goals. So definitely be sure to check that out. Be on the lookout for more insights from our winners. And of course, if you're inspired to submit your own killer content, the nominations for 2017 already are now open. You can submit your nominations using the link on this slide. And we hope you share your stories with us. We hope you're inspired by Magnetic's story and are even inspired to maybe release a survey or two in the near future. So thanks again to everyone out there for watching. Thanks again to Jamie and Kathy for taking the time out. Hope everyone has a great day.